gets one signature guitar and then explodes.
Yeah, that's all it took.
He was looking for a life that would give him the feeling of being worthwhile.
Welcome to another episode of Between Two Amps. We've got a awesome guest today that I've known for 20 plus years at this point. You might know him from such bands as WD-40, Darkest Hour, Battery, Be Well. I'm sure I'm missing something here.
Yeah, there's a lot more, but it's good. You found
But you know, hit the highlights. But give a warm welcome to Mike Schleibaum.
Mike, did you play Better Than 1,000?
No, I didn't. I did do a tour with Better Than 1,000 though, in 1999. But I'm very happy to be here on the podcast. I'm a big fan of Fred's, and you know, we're bros in rock. So I've interviewed him many times on Darkest Hour style podcasts and stuff for our Patreon. So I'm really happy to come on here and get interviewed. I can't. A little terrified. Let him have the mic, but I'll promise I'll shut up when I'm supposed to.
Tables have turned. I think that was in college. There was I can't remember who it was. Someone had a fake straight edge table tennis themed band, fictional band that was called Tables Turned.
Was Matt Strugar singing for that band?
Oh, he was involved for sure.
Didn't see this interview starting there.
Well, let's turn the tables again back to Mike. So like, where does your journey start with guitar? I know early on you were, and maybe people may not know this, that you were kind of big into hockey at first, but you know, what drew you into wanting to play guitar, and was it punk, or did you find punk first and then get into guitar, or was it vice versa? Like how did that all unfold?
Well, it's interesting to kind of just try to dig back in the hard drive and go, okay, first memory, guitar. But it's not that hard to place because, as you mentioned, I was a big fan of ice hockey. I didn't grow up in a musical house. My dad did have records, but we didn't listen to them until years after he passed away. So, I mean, it was like almost no music, right? And so I was into hockey and had friends because I was into that. And we would play street hockey because we live here in Virginia where there's no ice. And I had friends that went to a different elementary school, or no, middle school at that point. And I would walk there. It was a big deal that I could walk there and play street hockey with them. And then I could stay at my friend's house afterwards before my mom would pick me up. And that's where I was introduced to cable TV, which is amazing. Okay, we didn't have
I've heard of it.
And yep. MTV. And so I remember being with my buddy Brendan Bradshaw, and sitting there, and we had the same awakening moment. The AC/DC video for Those About to Rock, which is all black and white, came on. Maybe Black and Black's black and white, but I just remember sticking the can.
Was it the live?
It's the live one.
About to Rock.
Yeah.
Video.
Is that black and white? I mean, I just remember.
No, that one's color.
That one's
but
color.
I know what you're
back
talking
and black
about.
Is back. But either way, we were just like, whoa, you know. And I went home and I told my mom I want a guitar, and she was so excited I was gonna try anything that wasn't hockey. I don't know why she didn't like that at the time. Maybe it was expensive. So she borrowed.
Does she know about music?
Well, my mom was a Catholic nun for a decade. She missed the entire rise and fall of the Beatles, but was alive like it was basically a 20-something during that time. So She knew of music, but definitely was oblivious, you know. She did play piano. She played piano like for church stuff. So when I asked for a guitar, she went to the neighbor's house and got an acoustic guitar. And then was like, if you can play, you know, Happy Birthday, I'll get you like the other guitar you want, which was maddening because I hated trying to like learn music and learn. I hated it. But eventually my dad had a buddy at work who was selling a guitar. It was like a hot red Strat with a Floyd that would never stay in tune, that just like pushed against it. I mean, it was awful, right? I mean, it was a Strat. It might have been a Kramer, but it was probably a Charvel. But I kind of
a hot
liked
pink
it.
Kramer.
But right away I was excited because it was electric, you know? And so basically that was my beginning of playing electric guitar, was that kind of 2-week period where I was frustrated with the acoustic, and I convinced, you know, when I won that argument to get that guitar that was an electric guitar, although I'm kind of leaving out, like, they didn't get me an amp. You know, they didn't know that you needed to have that. So it took like a while to get to the amp part.
You're not the first. It's like, because I had the same thing where, you know, it was first you can have the guitar but you can't have the strings. Then like
Well, I'll tell you really sad. This is a sad story, but
that's a good one.
I do remember this story distinctly. Like, I found in the want ads, like in the paper, a guy that was selling a Marshall cabinet, you know, and a Marshall head. And I couldn't afford the head, but I wanted to get the cabinet, right? So I remember, like, I forced my mom to go to this guy's house, and like we went in there, and this is the first Marshall cabinet I ever bought. It was a used one, you know, which is telling. And like, we didn't know how anything worked. We didn't know how to plug anything. Or it was like me and my mom who was clueless. But the guy was just so happy to get rid of this cabinet. He sold it to us. He was obviously like a musician. He had other gear there. And we got home, and then right away my mom's like, well, let's hear it. And then I had to explain to her that, like, these were speakers, but then you need the amplifier. And it was like a huge family meltdown that, like, I had to buy something else now. So this began my gear madness journey. And so that's the answer to your question. Where did it begin? It started with AC/DC and used Marshall cabinets in the Washington.
So what year about was this?
1993. No, okay. Well, it's weird because I was thinking about this before I came on the show. It wasn't that long before, like, after I was playing guitar, that I was playing in my own band that I composed the music of, like, trying to play a show that I got people to go to. I mean, we're talking, I went from barely being able to play, you know, Happy Birthday to like having a band in the basement kind of within a few months. So this probably would have been this probably would have been 93 or 94, because Darkest Hour was my third like real band. And by the time that I was in Darkest Hour, we had played all around town, played venues, played in Washington, D.C., played a show. So I think it was either 92 or 93, you know, somewhere around that time. But,
so what was the first band
that I played in? That was my band?
Yeah, was that WD-40
yeah, so WD-40 started, and we were very short-lived because the singer, he got sent away to military school or something by his parents. He was very troubled, but you know, he was perfect for that singer, you know, perfect for that lead singer, brooding. He wrote poetry. He, you know, but our drummer, his dad owned a local music store, and he had some free studio loan time. He had traded for ad space to a guy who owned this local studio. So we went and we recorded our first demo tape, the WD-40 demo. And then I just started going around school trying to sell my cassette tape, you know, right away. Like, we got like a mix. We played it, got a mix. It was done. Got the artwork done at this place called Lion and Fox, which years later still does that. And then we went right into the hallways. And then that's when I met my other friends who were into music, and then my journey began. And then I started in Division sort of in the ashes of that. Basically, like, okay, now I'm going to start a real band. And then we played a bunch until we imploded. And then I was like, okay, now I'm really going to start a real band. So there was like really 3 tries, and it wasn't until I got like out of high school that I was able to really get something to take flight. Because really it is hard to do that in high school. I mean, back then too, in the 90s, it was different kids.
But so what did I don't know if I've ever heard WD-40.
Oh God, I got the demo tape right here. I can't show it to you. What does it sound like? This is interesting. It is strange because it's heavily Pantera influenced.
Oh,
But it's also got a funk song. Oh God. And then there's like a ballad, and then there's kind of like a Nirvana-y, Sonic Youth-y kind of noise rock jam. We were really kind of like bending genres, man. We were kind of like, we didn't realize that it didn't really make a lot of sense. But high school, man.
Dude, some bands have made careers out of that.
I mean, now we'd probably be a lot more popular than my current bands, but whatever. But it is a funny listen, and you can't find it anywhere on the internet for good reason.
That is a crime.
Fred, what
Don't
was
even
your
think you
first
can
band?
find In Division on the internet. Can't even find that on YouTube. That's how good I've kept these secrets.
And did you guys have a 7-inch out?
In Division had 2 tape cassettes. We didn't really do 7 inches because at that time most people had tape players. Tapes were easier to make, and honestly, we thought at the time they were more durable, but now we know they are not.
So when WD-40 recorded, like what was did you go to a studio or was
it was it was a sick state of the art studio. And it was right around the corner for where later Darkest Hour John Henry, our singer, lived in these apartments by a Bowl of America, like right by where the studio was. I mean, it was kind of in the part of our town where I didn't really go that often, and it was tucked back there in this like warehousey area. And this guy really, man, he must have lost a lot of money trying to do that. I'm sure it went out of business, but man, it was locked and loaded with everything. And I think we recorded to ADAT, to be honest with you. I don't think it was recorded to reel to wheel. Although later, basically,
was that a big console? Big SSL console?
Huge. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
And everything was pretty much live. I got to do a few overdubs, but I mean the guy wanted to get the hell out of there for real. And we
haven't done our funk jam yet.
But I remember there's like, I think it's Domination, that Pantera song where there's that reverse reverb on the snare.
Yeah.
I remember like punishing the dude to do that effect on this breakdown at the end of one of the songs. So we definitely had time to like get in there and punish him a little bit. And the drummer at the time, he was a firecracker, so I'm sure he was a handful. And this guy, he just bit into, but we went for it. And we were young, recording all originals. We didn't do any covers. That didn't even occur to us. It was like we wanted to be in a band,
So how did you record that with the possibly Kramer Floyd guitar?
Oh no, man! At that point, I had my real rig.
Ooh, what was that?
So when I could finally save up enough money, I bought a Jackson Rhodes V.
I know that one. I had that for a while.
You had that actual one?
Yeah, I had it sitting
I don't know what it is
at my parents' house for
I
a
don't
hot
know.
second.
Anyway, whatever. It was cool. I tore it apart. You can find really old videos of Darkest Hour. I used that guitar from basically, it was my guitar from then until I discovered this amazing music store we're going to have to talk to called Atomic Music. And that's where I got into all other things. But until then, I just wanted a heavy metal guitar, and I went to the Music and Arts around the corner. That's what they had. Flying V Jackson. I remember we watched Kill 'Em All on, Cliff 'Em All on VHS, and there was a Flying V in that Kirk Hammett had, and I was like, I want that guitar. But anyway, that's a
Is
guitar.
Jackson sick?
Yeah, that's a guitar I recorded my first demo with. But listen, this is how crazy I was. Around that time I started reading, because this was like I said 93 or 94. So Vulgar Display of Power had come out, I think it was 92. And really just changed a lot of things about guitar. Like I fell in love with guitar in a new way when I found Pantera. And so I was like trying to get that Bill Lawrence 500 MXL pickup, like you would read about it in the magazine, get my music store to order it. I mean, I put that in that guitar, just tore it apart, wired it myself, burnt myself with the soldering gun like crazy, scratched the whole front of the guitar doing it on the garage floor.
Nice.
So I'm sure it didn't sound that great on that recording. I didn't know a lot about how to keep a Floyd in tune, but I should go back and listen to it now that we're talking about this much, because, but maybe not.
Did that guitar have a reverse headstock? No, right?
No, it was a Jackson Performer Series bolt-on.
Yeah, bolt-on.
Dot neck.
Oh, bolt-on. Okay.
Rhodes, and it had the Bill Lawrence 500 in it.
Yep, that was it, man. A lot of straight edge stickers on it.
Hell nice. Yeah. So, what was the so there's WD-40, then Indivision, and is that like where did kind of getting into the punk scene start to happen? Is like
I'll tell you right here, this story segues perfectly, almost like I told it a bazillion times. No, no. So we were making tape cassettes. Like I said, I don't know how fast your editing is, but I could grab one and show you one because they're literally right here. But that was all we did. Like, hold on.
Grab it, man. So was it?
Okay, look, I don't have everyone here in front of me, but I have a battery demo tape. Here's the Darkest Hour demo tape. Look at that emo. Look at that. We used to go to Kinko's and print stuff out and cut it up and make it look punk.
So but you get the tapes actually screened and everything.
So this is like screened, printed. Looks legit.
I remember that.
You can get these like 150 a pop from the local duplication place, and they would come shrink wrapped, and then we would make these like little
card inserts. Yep.
At Kinko's, and we would, which is basically FedEx. You guys know what that. So we would cut them in half, and then you'd have two. Anyway, basically, we were passing these tapes around school like just nonstop, trying to find gigs, trying to figure out what to do, right? And that's where I met my friends that later I would start touring with, and they were in a band called Frodis, right? And Frodis was a super weird, it's considered spazcore, I guess, and they kind of were a little bit ahead of us. They were older. They were connected to the actual like DC hardcore punk scene a little bit, although they weren't as much as we thought, but they were actually into real shows. And the first like show I went to that blew my mind was a Frodis show, because I was like, oh my God, like you can flyer and you can get people to come and have your own like gig, man. Look, it was $10, at this music store. And so after I met them, they're like, well, you got to get in the city. And so after WD-40 broke up, Indivision's goal was, we want to play a real hardcore show, and that's because we had discovered in the city they had this budding scene, and there was this place called the Chamber of Sound that had awesome national straight edge and vegan hardcore acts, and I kind of got into all that stuff all at once, because once I met these guys, it was like, oh, hear this band. And then also there was a used record and tape trading kind of store where a lot of that culture kind of thrived. So after we discovered this venue, we went to our first show there, and it was Frodis, Damnation AD, Undertow from Seattle and Unbroken from California. And
Man, that is a stacked lineup right there.
oh my God. Like the first time I saw like a dog pile sing along, felt it in the room, like everybody losing their shit. I was like, I'm in. So they had shows there all the time after that. And, you know, we were the young guys moshing, whatever. And then one day we got the call that somebody had canceled, and Indivision got asked to play a show with Brothers Keeper, Floor Punch, and man, I can't remember the headliner. I don't know. I want to say maybe it was Strife, but which might make sense with that lineup. But so Indivision played that show, and then after that, directly broke up, like imploded, and we were like, man, should have made our goal like bigger, you know. But after that, the fire had been lit. We had met the promoters. We had met seen the venues. We'd seen the scene. We were done with like playing around high school. We were like, let's get into the city because the thing is that these bands were now touring the US. And some of these bands, like some of our local heroes, had even gone to Europe and toured there. And that was like our dream, right? So we just sort of became the little dog bouncing around the big dog kind of guys, you know, and then we started Darkest Hour kind of out of the ashes of that. And that was when we started, we able to play shows just because we were around and bands kept canceling and we were there. And so we were tied to hardcore kind of from then on, really.
That's awesome. So, because I definitely remember, like, pretty much any time I went to a show in DC, you know, prior to joining Darkest Hour, like 9 times out of 10, you know, there would be the flyer, and then whether or not Darkest Hour was on it, I would get there late or so. It was like, oh yeah, Darkest Hour. I'm like, of course they did.
Well, we were okay. So I'll never forget. We're at the show. It's like Snapcase, Lifetime, Endeavor, and then Lifetime cancels. Everybody in Darkest Hour is there except for our drummer, and the promoter guy is kind of this tough dude. He like looks at us and he's like, "Man, you guys want to play? You got an hour. Get him here." So I call up our drummer Matt, and I'm like, "Dude, you got to get down here. We're gonna play this show with, you know, we're gonna play this show. You got to get down here. We're taking Lifetime slot." So Matt goes to his boss and he's like, "Hey, I got to cut out, and for an hour or two, I'll be back." Leaves his job at like the Home Depot, you know, basically type place. It was like a lumber yard. Drives all the way into the city, plays the show, turns around, drives back, finishes shift, clocks out, goes home. And then the best part is when he got there, we had to use all the gear that was there. So we just had to use like one of the band's gear who was like in a totally different tuning than we played in. And we just played the songs in that tuning. Who gave a shit, right? And I'll never forget, the promoter gets on stage. He's looking at this crowd. There's like 200 people there. It's pretty packed. You know, these bands were kind of popular at this moment. And he just says, "Hey, Lifetime canceled. Darkest Hour is going to play. Anybody wants their money back, meet me right there at the door. We'll talk outside." The door. And then everybody's like, and so we play and they have to watch, you know, and that's sort of what happened. Like we were really hungry. And so we started playing all the time when people canceled, like you said. And then after a while, we started to buddy up with these bands and we were able to get on our first little East Coast tour and, you know, started collecting phone numbers and everything. And it just kind of that was the game.
So what was were you still using all the Indivision gear at that time? Or was it starting to evolve at that? And what was the amp? Because I don't know if we got the speaker cabinet. I'm guessing you weren't plugging straight into that.
No. So around this time, around the beginning of Indivision, a music store in College Park, Maryland opened up called Atomic Music. It's one of the best used music stores that exists. If you're ever in the greater Washington, D.C. area and you like gear, go to this place because they have a bunch of used stuff, but they don't have used stuff like really expensive stuff. And they don't have a bunch of used stuff, like a bunch of garbage that's overpriced. I mean, it's really like for musicians by musicians. And it's run by two guys mainly, and one of them was in a local band called Lucy Brown from back in the day, and they were kind of known around town. So this place was in a little building right by a 7-Eleven, was known for just treating people right, you know. And I'd had so many bad experiences where I was trying to find out, all this gear was so expensive.
Yeah.
You can never try it out. I mean, everybody's had that experience where they go into the music store and they try to plug in, and then the music store guy takes it or whatever and plays it in front of them, and they don't get a chance to play. I mean, maybe that isn't a thing anymore. I remember when Mars Music started, the big thing was you could just play.
I forgot about Mars Music.
Yeah, short-lived. And that was the thing. You could just play anything. And so I remember going there, and it was the first time anyone who worked in a music store said, hey, yeah, like, plug in this Marshall JCM 800 and turn it up. Like, you need to turn it up, you know, and just go. And just like, and then from then on, it was so far away. It was like an hour away plus traffic. And I would drive up there all the time to buy stuff. And I bought my SG Firebrand from there, which I used pretty much up until Mark of the Judas, which is when I discovered Les Paul sounded way better. I'm going to talk about that later. But I kind of ditched the Floyd because it was really problematic and I wasn't using it. Nobody I was in a band with liked the sound of any Floyd stuff. We weren't playing solos. So I got a used SG from this music store, and then I got into Marshalls, you know, and at the same time, Marshalls didn't have enough gain, so I tried everything you could try, you know, Ampegs. They had like really kind of bad sounding early PVs, you know.
On the Ampegs, was that the Lee Jackson Ampegs? That
I'm talking about solid state, kind of like the one from the guy from Aztec used to use. Like, and some of this stuff actually, in retrospect, actually is good sounding gear. You just got to dial way different than what the fuck we were doing. But I just ended up gravitating to a gear setup that I pretty much had until 2004 or 2003, which would have been when we recorded Sadist Nation in Sweden. That was the first time anyone really like stepped up to the Marshall and was like, you know what? The Swedes were like, what is up with this? And I had also been playing a block letter, a block letter 5150, which we flew over there in a flight case, and that was the head. They were like, we want to buy this from you. Like, this is like like 5150 when that PV came out. That was like, this is what heavy metal is supposed to sound like. You know?
Fuck. Well, I actually have a question on that. So knowing, you know, like I remember anytime, well, I guess that would have been after we had played with In Flames and they were using the 5150. So they already knew about the 5150.
Well, they knew a lot. I mean, there's a lot. It's not just the 5150, man. If you want to sound like as clean as In Flames, you need to have an EMG. You need to have a guitar.
81?
Yeah. I mean, whatever. And both guitar players need to be playing the same EMG. The same. And I mean, dude, they probably would get on here and argue, like, no, we use Duncan's. We use, you know, whatever, you know, crazy boutique thing. But I'm telling you, like, back in the day, it was, you know, EMGs through those 5150s with a super tight noise gate, with a guitar that was in tune, with a guy who could play, you know? And that is what you have. A band that rehearsed, you know, and knew that stuff.
I should write this down. So
write that rehearsing part down.
Rehearse, practice. Tuner.
But that the 5150 and the Angle Powerball, I believe, was an amp we used on that record, which I'd never seen before. So then what happened? I mean, not to just dive into it, but I got into the high gain amps, and then I sort of like moved away from my Marshalls, and I still have my 800 here. I still use it a lot. I actually have fallen in love with the 900 recently with Be Well. And I've used those 800s on all for layering and all sorts of stuff, but it was pretty much after then I just kind of never went back because I think the music is just so high gain, and we were kind of chasing that sound, like the Gothenburg sound, which is really hard to achieve. Is possible with the 800s and stuff, but in a live setting it's a lot easier with a plug and go high gain amp, like maybe like an EVH.
shameless plug. So going back to the 800s real quick though, because I remember you were using Turbo Rat, like, because when I first met you, it was, you had like a 50 watt 800 and a 100 watt 800 through two cabs, and the Turbo Rats, one running to each head.
Nice.
and but not playing anything right. But
but what was this? Because like this has come up a couple times, and yeah, I was even going back and listening to No More Dreams the other day. It was just like, it had been so long since I just sat and listened to the whole record. I was just like, it's fucking brutal. Sounds great. Like, yeah, it's a very distinctive tone. Like, and I get your point. Like, doesn't really work as well with, you know, tight melodic death metal, but
I love that sound. But can I grab my Rat pedal to demonstrate?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
please. Because what I was gonna get at was I vaguely remember you having kind of the secret sauce settings marked on the Rat pedal.
This is my trusty Rat pedal. It's nice. I know there are many but this, and they're all the same or not the same, but this is mine. It's special. Okay.
So
so let's talk about this. Is the Turbo Rat.
Right.
This is not the Rat. And this pedal, yeah, like I love the No More Dream. Yeah. No More Dreams. You know, I love
No More Dreams, a happy ending.
I love the No More Dreams sound, the sound on Misericordia. I love Ken Olden's guitar sound from that era. And it's basically this pedal, everything 12 o'clock, dude. Straight up. That is the Damnation. You take that, you turn down all the presence on your Marshall, you turn down all the middle on your Marshall, turn the bass all the way up. That's the sound. A lot of it is too Ken's right hand. He plays a very distinct way. He never plays an alternate pick. It affects the way he writes riffs, but it also gives it that sound. But he plays a very thin pick. He plays very lightly. So it gives it, with the Rat, you really hear the bite of the pedal because of the way Ken picks. And when I pick with the Rat, you really hear the bass push on it. So what's interesting is I'm more from the Brian McTernan school of the Rat pedal. And this is my setting, which if you look, kind of seems weird at first. But you're
more
kind
of a
just,
boost than,
you're just blending with the Marshall.
Yeah.
And you're getting a lot more of the mids and the clarity of the lows. Now, Ken may have adjusted his sound, because I'll tell you, as I've played with him later in the years, he uses more Mesa stuff. He really and you used to love the Mesa, and it blows my mind because I never liked Mesas or got into them or understood them, and I always remembered that you got it, and that is what Metallica uses, man. They use Mesas, dude. Look at all the videos. I mean, sure, the old ones have a couple Marshall stacks, but it's Mesa up till it's diesel. Anyway, the Rat pedal, I hated at first. I was so frustrated because my heroes were using it. But later, once I realized how to blend it, it was my go-to for real. This, and also an ultra tight noise gate.
Yeah. That's crucial for me too. I use a noise gate all the time.
But I don't use this pedal anymore, just for recording. Live, the bands that I would use this for now, I like to use just more the amp distortion. Because as I've gotten older, I've realized that, like, if you back the gain off, you can really hear the playing a little bit more. And play good enough, you're not afraid to back the gain off. So, I mean, I don't use this pedal so much in my current setups, but it's definitely a go-to when I'm recording. And for this sound that Fred and I are talking about, it's definitely, this is the secret weapon. You know,
What was what were you playing in Battery when you were when you were playing with them? Did you have
I would have definitely been copying Ken's. I would have been playing a Rat through a Marshall. But on the last tour that we did, okay, when we reunited, when we went out with H2O, some nights I would use their orange. They had an orange that sounded great.
Was it? Do you remember which one?
Rocker Verb or something?
Yeah. Do you know which Mark? Was it a Mark III or?
I don't know. It was like a 50 watt. It was heavy though in those flight cases. And they, let's think about this. I also used the Seymour Duncan the red booster pedal, just a little bit of that. But I don't like for Battery. I didn't think it really needed that much gain, but I needed to just kind of keep up with Ken because he was over there, and on that last tour he's using a Mesa Boogie and an ESP, like with, I think it even had DiMarzio super distortions. I mean, there was some gain. So you don't want it to sound like two different bands are playing. So
That's hilarious. So I think just going in the chronological order, there was, you know, WD-40, Indivision, Darkest Hour starts. You do this offshoot, join Battery, or like kind of, I think that was 96, 97, somewhere in there.
So, you know, Battery was a Washington, D.C. hardcore straight edge band that was around from the 90s. So they were around way before I just became a fan, and I got asked to join the band to do a tour with them in 1999, which opened my entire vision and reach. And I was able to even book an entire U.S. tour of America, like with Darkest Hour, just by like calling people up and saying, "Hey, I got this guy. He was in Battery. He's got this heavy metal band." You know what I mean? It was like stupid. I was the guy, but it worked. You know. And so then after a while, after I had done Darkest Hour for a while, then I felt comfortable enough to start maybe playing in some other projects, and you know, like I had been around other musicians long enough that things were happening. So I would say my first, okay, this is interesting. My first band, oh wow, my first band after I was in Darkest Hour is either My Best Mistake, which is the singer of, oh man, it must be Man Cake. Okay, so basically,
I remember
two bands. Man Cake, it must have been Man Cake. First of all, Man Cake was me and the drummer from Frodis on vocals, the drummer from Samuel, the emo band from the 90s, on drums, and the guitar player for Frodis on guitar. And we were like sort of a shock rock wannabe G.G. Allen light.
G. Allen.
Like band. So basically I did that band for a while, and that was a nice change from Darkest Hour because it was something that wasn't serious. You know what I mean? It was just fun, and it was light, and it was wild, you know. And then
do you remember the Man Cake Reversal of Man Darkest Hour tour that we did?
Oh God, do I remember it? Yeah, I remember it.
Wait, was that really a tour?
That was really a tour.
Yeah, it was definitely really a tour. And anyway, we don't need to get bogged down in Man Cake history. Y'all can Google that, okay? But after that, I also started a band called My Best Mistake with the singer of Battery. It was more of like a hardcore kind of rock. It was also the drummer from the Explosion was in the band for a while, and John
Andrew
from Darkest Hour was in the band.
We play with Andrew
Black.
Oh yeah, okay. So you know Andrew, and Andrew was also in Battery when we did the reunion tour. So there was like a big.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But if we're just, I mean, if this is just like a shootout bands that Mike was in fucking episode, I mean, we could just keep going, because then after that, I was in this band called Beast of No Nation with my buddies Kevin Lamiel. He was in Majority Rule. Jason Yawn, he was also in Trial by Fire with Kevin. And Andrew Black was in that band. Okay. After doing that band for a while, we had to change the name to Free Children of Earth. So I was doing that for a while. After that, sort of like stopped for a little bit. Later on, come the other bands, Be Well and Zealot and Darkest Hour keeps going. So it's like, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's any ones I missed in there, but man, I did a little project with Fred that never got released.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so I definitely, it wasn't like I stopped doing bands after Darkest Hour started, but definitely have tried to stay focused on trying to keep, that going in one direction at least. But I do think that things have changed. Back when we were young, it was like you wanted to be James Hetfield from Metallica. I mean, he was just James Hetfield from Metallica. But now artists have sort of a more like personal brand, I guess you would say, and they're sort of like in multiple bands. I mean, almost everybody, like from the guys from the Deftones to a lot of the younger bands. And I think it is actually healthy in a way, although it can be problematic to keeping bands together sometimes. I think it is healthy for people and for bands and for, music culture that this is a thing that's developed. So I've always been supportive of that, other dudes in the band having other bands.
I think it's also kind of a function of trying to make ends meet, like financially as well, like to just
diversify your bonds.
Yeah. But like, so with where I was going with like all of those bands, like each one sonically is, I mean, it's a wide array of different types of music. So like creatively, like how do you approach like, all right, well, what is this band going to sound like? What's the gear that I need to be able to do that? Like, do you shift a lot? And
oh my God. Yeah, I just got hit with a lightning bolt to answer your question, which is, man, I left out a really cool band. I did a band called Chimp Suit with Amanda Mackay, Arthur, Noel, Rosendo. We were awesome band, okay? And we played Fort Reno. We played a Positive Force show at the Wilson Center, and we were like a DC like punk. It's weirdo music. We recorded an entire demo at Inner Ear here in Washington D.C., famous punk studio.
Oh, cool.
And this album has never been released. It's not out. The band sort of like stopped because people got busy with other things. And I've kept, I'm great friends with Amanda. She has a new band called Bedmaker that's named after a Chimp Suit song. And they're really, really good. And I think it probably makes more sense sonically that everybody's stories went the way they went. But I bring this specific band up because I remember going and like buying a ton of different guitars that had single coil pickups in them because I had never even owned a guitar with a single coil pickup, and I needed it to be like twangy and crazy and gnarly and kind of like bendy and wonky, and man, there's just no other bite than like a cool distorted single coil, and so when I was on this quest, it kind of occurred to me. I was like, man, I'm kind of like, if there's my personal brand, it's that I like to be a guy who is into string skipping arpeggios and economy picking, and his religion is the fucking Floyd Rose trem, but also understands like that if I want to be in like a punk inspired band that sort of sounds like Wire or something, I need to play totally differently. Like I don't want my guitar playing to get so good that it can't be bad on purpose.
Here's
Sonic jack of all trades kind of.
Here's a funny anecdote. Well, when I first saw you play with Battery, that was in '99 in Chicago at the Fireside Bowl. And like you were like, you had that, I think you were playing that SG, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't know Battery had a second guitar player, and you guys were going crazy. It was an awesome show. And then then Hope Conspiracy, I think, plays with Darkest Hour in DC, and I was like, whoa, that dude's a shredder. Because I thought he was playing battery. I was like, I was like, oh, he's just a fucking hardcore guitar player. And I was like,
God,
oh,
we were probably...
shit, that dude shreds, and I was like, and me and like the other guitar player from HopeCon are like, whoa, we're not shredders.
Hey, can I tell you a HopeCon story though? So we had played with a lot of different bands, and that show at the Fireside was pivotal, the one you're talking about, because it was one of the ones I was able to get Victory Records to come to, like, as a showcase to get us signed. And I'll never forget, like, we were trying to do a lot of fast picking and like shit with like no click, with a lot of distortion, like just loud, right? And so it didn't really have the straight impact it could have had. And I just remember when you guys played, it sounded so fucking full and like in tune. Okay, I know that sounds weird, but like Fred, we were like jumping around and we were cool, but like this shit was like gonna. No, it was like a big, massive fist, right? And the riffs had room to breathe, and it's really cool. Like, you guys were a really cool, like, not super fast, hardcore heavy band, and I don't think a lot of people give those HopeCon records enough credit, because there's just a lot of other music out there, but the production's great.
Thanks.
The riffs everything stands up. Like, if you're watching this, video, you ain't checked out HopeCon, check it out, man. But I remember we were impressed by how solid it was, and that was a factor of you guys playing within the boundaries of what you knew could sound really good. And for better or for worse, Fred knows, as he was part of our team, I think at times we've tried to stray, as close to the sun as you can get, therefore making shit like super hard, but then hard to really make clear live.
Got it. Yeah, we just weren't those guitar players, so we were like, let's just play. But then it was also a lot of like you were saying, like you had to get a Telecaster to play with that, or a single coil to play with that band. When I joined HopeCon, they're like, all right, you got to get rid of all your gear, because I showed up and I was playing like vegan straight edge bands that are all like rack gear and total like, and then all of a sudden, like, we got a 5150, one of the original ones, the block letter ones, for like $300. Got a tuner and a noise gate. And that was it. And they're like, all right, that's your setup.
Yeah. And I went through the like rack game. Yeah. And I'll never forget, shout out to Shelby Sinka from the band Frodus, because this dude, he plays a very different style than me. It's Google him, you'll check him out. It's very like DC noise rock, right? But he loves heavy metal, loves Iron Maiden, and he's a genius. And I trust him. And one day when we're kids, we're all jamming, and I'm like, yo, check out my tone. I got my rack set up, my amp, and I'm like, and he's like, yeah, it sounds kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, I just can't get it. I can't get that low end I want, And Shelby just comes over and he's like, well, have you tried this? And he just presses the bypass button on like all the racks. And it's like everything just goes, it's like just a fucking sick ass tube amp, loud as shit. And Jason, our other buddy, just goes, that's it, what'd you do, that's the setting. And I'm like, oh. And it was just like, I don't know. And that's when I realized, like, I probably
if I were you, I would delete this.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, Shelby always had really cool gear too. Like, I remember like his Epiphone cornet that he had.
He had the plush head.
Yeah. Like,
and he had an earth head. He had an earth head or an earth cab. He had a good kind of like, it was kind of like a Sonic Youth kind of, I don't know, I can't really describe it, but that band Frodus was a really cool band from that era, because they really didn't fit sonically with a lot of bands that were playing. I mean, we were playing melodic death metal, but it did fit because of the culture of the time. And that was one of the things that I thought was so special about Darkest Hour at that time was we really did play with a lot of kind of different sounds, even though we were kind of wild, you know?
It's like I feel like the DC scene had so much variety in it, like, you know, sonically, but there's like, that was like the epitome of a scene that was like, the Bond was like not a sound, but like the punk, like either like the
Yeah, literally, like, punk is not a sound.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I know that sounds weird to say, but like,
Yeah, no, totally.
punk is a community, and it's no, there's no more obvious place to me than Washington D.C. Okay, and I know this firsthand because I know the type of people that are at a Darkest Hour concert when we're here. You know, it's like they are artists and musicians from the whole spectrum of, you know, music. And that's the special thing about the city, is that you can kind of have all this stuff going on musically, and it's bonded more by the community. And at sometimes I've felt, you know, like, man, I wish there was more of just like a straight metal scene to be a part of here, you know? And don't get me wrong, there is a good local metal scene, and that maybe even Darkest Hours grandfathered out of in some way, and that's okay. But in general, I've always, you know, been really happy that we've kind of been our own band, like not only with our sound, but also the things that we've done. Like, you know, we've done things a lot of other Washington, D.C. bands haven't done, but, you know, been sponsored, you know, by like these companies and doing these more packagey tours. And, you know, we really kind of like stretched what we were going to do outside of the comfort areas of the scene that we grew out of, and they always supported us, you know? Like, we were always welcome back to the same benefit shows and the same stages and the same you know, bands might have changed, but people started new bands. And so really, that's the special thing of, well, I'm sure there are places that exist outside of DC that are like this, but that's what I like about here.
I mean, every time HopeCon would play DC, we'd always play with a very, very bill. It was like awesome. Like I remember when we played with you guys the first time was at the church. There's like a church in Maryland, I think.
St. Andrews,
yeah. Yeah. And it was like you guys, us, I don't know who else played, but it was all different bands. Like I think Fairweather might have played.
Oh yeah.
Like in their first incarnation, I think.
Yep. Two-fifths of Fairweather are in Be Well. So there was a lot of Fairweather Darkest Hour crossover, which is crazy because, you know, they're an emo rock band. But the playing at church, you know, playing at non-bar style venues really did a lot to, I think, foster the community and make bands like cross genres too. So the church you mentioned, along with the Wilson Center and a lot of other DIY venues, we had a lot of those here in DC that really helped foster that too.
And yeah, because I feel like like Richmond was to a slightly lesser extent. I mean, it was a smaller scene, but like if it wasn't for all of the shows kind of happening at one club or one house or whatever, like I don't think I would have been exposed to as much varieties of music, or like, you know, been like going to see Morbid Angel and being like half the people there, I saw at the Avail show.
Like, I mean, Richmond's a beautiful place. Like the Richmond scene, like, was so important to the early development of Darkest Hour, but in general was so awesome. I mean, it's still there now too. Don't get me wrong, but when the time of my life where I really interacted with it a lot, I loved it. I loved the pace of the way everybody took things down there. It was just so different, and I love the way that shows were, the vibe at shows, you know. And even though it is culturally a little different than the scene in DC, there are a lot of things that feel very similar, you know. And there were times where it actually supported heavy music even more than, you know, up here, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Because Richmond had a solid communal heavy metal scene, you know. So in some ways it was a little different, you know, and that's what made it even, you know, kind of cooler to us on the outside.
Well, like Virginia Beach also had a like a metal scene, right? Or heavier bands. Right?
Yeah, but
like,
it wasn't
Jesuit,
nowhere. I mean, it wasn't nowhere like what was happening because of the colleges and the access in those cities.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely, like, I went to a lot of shows in Virginia Beach, and it was like mid 90s. It was, you know, Channel, Jesuit, which all, you know, went on to spawn, you know, like Converge, you know, or Nate Newton left for Converge, and Brian Benoit for Dillinger Escape Plan. So there was a lot of guys that migrated out of that scene, but
I mean,
it was definitely.
I've sat in that tunnel going to the shows, like in that traffic, been like, God damn it, are we gonna make the first band? Come on. So I drove from DC down to Virginia fucking Beach to see bands. That's how sick this scene was at one point. Trust me, I get it. And Darkest Hours played there a few years ago, even, you know. But the internet definitely has changed the way that things happen, you know, and the way that you market stuff. So I don't know if it's harder or just different, but I remember the shows being super wild, but us making pilgrimages down there to see some of these bands you're talking about, you know, and that says a lot when you come from a place where we're at, where there's like a big population and there's always something going on.
Oh, hell yeah. Like that some of, I think that was or Norfolk, I think, was the first time I actually, because I had heard of Damnation, and then hadn't every
wait,
time
that
I'd go
show, that was your first time you saw them with the Budweiser backdrop?
Oh, did they have it? Probably did. It was them, Lifetime, and Snapcase.
Yeah. I think I was at that concert. Man.
They were on tour together.
Yeah.
Look at that tour, even. That's like a crazy tour.
Yeah.
Actually, B Well's going to be playing a show with Snapcase, Earth Crisis, and Strife coming up in March, or no, in May. It's in May.
On the East Coast? Is it that West
California
Coast?
Takeover, but not in California, in Buffalo. It's a California Takeover in Buffalo concert.
Nice. Of all cities.
But anyway, it's just, you know, it's a testament to the times, man. Those bands are still doing it. It's crazy.
It's great. So, like, of all these bands that you've been in, and all the records that you've recorded, like being on both sides, like playing on the records, engineering records, producing records. We hadn't even really talked about, like, you know, you setting up a studio, the Riff Dojo there, and we can see a little piece of.
Yeah. I'm out the recording game. To be honest with you, I've only produced a few bands this year. I mean, I say that I'm out, but I always get sucked in. Oh, it's so much work. I'm in my 40s. It's all about me as an artist. Like, I want to do my bands, and I want to just do that. Like, I feel like I've earned that opportunity, but I also spent a really long time in the trenches, like trying to double down and also have a production career, produce bands, manage bands, record bands, you know, everything that we talked about, diversifying what you're doing type thing. But sans pandemic, I've just decided, you know, I'm going to focus on this. So that's why it's just guitar amps, baby, back here, you know. But what was the question? Because, like, yeah.
So, I was getting to it. So, throughout all of these, like, what if you had like one piece of gear that you couldn't live without? What would that be?
Yeah, like a couple people said, "Oh, this pedal I have to have every show I play," or, you know, this guitar, this whatever.
All right.
This, you know.
Let's talk about, first of all, live concert, not a recording setting.
No, on tour.
Live concert. I don't know if I have one over here. I don't have one. The most important thing, wireless.
Oh,
Listen,
nice. That's a new one.
I'm telling you, like, I'm all about. See, look, right now I can't talk. Cause why? Cause the cables, man. The cables. I get that there's something. I don't something that might look like 80s to some people about this. Man, I'm just saying it's just magic.
Oh,
Like
it's
you want
the
to
best.
play a show, you want to break the barrier of like reality and make it feel ethereal or unreal or magic, or if you want to see someone really just like if you want to see someone in front of you just like dance on the instrument, you know, they need to be free, you know, like to move from the left side of the stage to the right side of the stage, from the front to the back, and just I know it sounds crazy, but man,
You're selling me, man. You're selling me.
If I have
for
to play
sure.
a concert with a fucking cable, I'm pissed off. Pissed off.
It's funny. I thought you were going to say a backdrop.
It better say my band's name somewhere. More my name. Better put says my name, I guess. So okay, so for live setting, my thing that I need is wireless. I mean, like I could make it work with a lot, but I need to be able to move around, baby. And then if you're gonna talk about recording, like you need a specific thing. I mean, obviously you need a fucking tuner, but I mean,
not really.
I don't know.
Definitely didn't have tuners.
Yeah,
dude,
those recordings
there's some
didn't
great
come out.
albums that were recorded without tuners. Van Halen 1 being one of them.
I don't want to record
AC/DC last
like
time too?
I'm not
Yeah,
saying it's not
AC/DC.
possible. I'm just telling you that it's going to make it a lot harder to pay attention to some other things. You know what I mean? So, but let's to be serious. I would say it's not an item, but an effect. Okay, if I'm going to record any record, I need to have compression. Period.
Oh,
Compression is it can be overused, don't get me wrong, but in all the music I play, it's the one thing that really makes things happen, you know? So if you're a budding young engineer and you don't know what I'm talking about, like you need to get yourself down with like how compression works, how it affects like everything in a mix. Snare drum, kick drum, guitars, bass, vocals in some manner, even the overall mix. You
do you
know,
play with the compression pedal live or anything? Or do you
no, I mean, because to me, that's like, I have in the past used the compression pedal. They sound awesome. Like if you're doing cleans sometimes and you want that really sound. But I use the 5150 EVH as you have, obviously.
Yeah.
And I use it in conjunction with an Axe Effects because I need everything in one place and everything to switch at once. So I would use the compression patch to emulate that. So I wouldn't necessarily use a pedal. But if in a live setting, on my guitar, I might use it if I'm playing clean, but just for a sound effect. But I would expect my front of house to probably, if I was him, I would probably just compress both of the left and right guitar just a little, just squeeze it a little to make it even, then find them at the right level, get them even. If I would, and kind of just get them sitting right there. And if I walking in on a live setting and I'm the front of house, that's what I need more than reverb, delay, or anything. I need compression. So that's the end of my TED Talk. Oh, but actually, I just thought about it. The one piece of gear I would need to do anything is my new Mike Schleibaum MSV Flying V from ESP Guitars.
Oh,
I can't imagine another piece of gear that would be more important to play a concert or record. So,
can we
what does it
get
look
yourself
like?
one of these kids? Get yourself one of these dads who have money. All you dads who have money or wives who have money, come on, don't leave everybody out. Daughters. I got one who likes a Flying V. She just doesn't like white. She wants it in red. I'm like, anyway, I don't know what we were talking about, but this is what I need to play.
That's the one piece of gear right there.
That's the one.
Oh man. Well, dude, thank you so much
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
for coming on.
Nailed it. That's it.
Man, I feel like there's so much more
Story's
that we
too
could.
long. The story's too long now.
I feel like there's so much more that we didn't touch on. Would love to have you come back at some point.
Part 2.
Hey, I just want to say thank you guys for doing this. Also, if you can check out all Fred's bands, okay? He's got a lot going on. Man, what's up with the lower class brats, Fred? You guys got a record coming out?
Dude, we do actually.
There you go, lower class brats. What about Guy Collider?
One in the can and one
got
in
a
the
record
works,
coming out?
and Guy Collider in the works.
There you go. Shit.
We're back in the room with Andrew Black on Friday, so
dangerous.
I know. It's
awesome.
all happening.
I love Andrew, man. He'll just you just play a riff and then he just starts playing a beat and you're like, that's it, dude. Just do that. There you go. Like that's the part.
I know.
Well, if you don't spend all your money on Fred's bands, I have a new Be Well record coming out this year on Revelation Records and N Hits Records. It's coming out in May. So we're gonna be on tour with a whole bunch of bands coming up that I can't tell you about, but right now the ones I can't tell you about are like Hot Water Music, Avail, Strike Anywhere, Tim Barry. We got dates all over. We got some awesome shit for the end of the year planned. So follow us on social media and shit. The band's called Be Well. And then also, of course, Darkest Hour has been working on album 10. We've been doing a Patreon to fund it. And we've been hooking up all of our, Patreons and fans via that route right now. But we will have a studio album coming out hopefully by the end of this year, but COVID makes things go a little longer. Right, and then we have a bunch of tours booked, shuffling around, trying to get back out there too. So between the two bands, I'm doing a lot. I mean, I also have the Zealot RIP record out there on 31G Records if you guys want to check out some weirdo shit too. And I got a couple of other albums I've produced just this year. The Bedmaker demo I was talking to you guys about, Amanda's band. You can find that on Bandcamp. They just put that out. And I've been recording a record for the band Samuel from the 90s, Resurrected.
They're doing a new record?
8 songs of awesomeness. It's coming your way as well. We're in the mixing state. Band. So I have been keeping busy, and appreciate you guys spreading the word and telling people how you can follow us, on Instagram and Facebook. We're on all that bullshit. But really, man, we hope to see everybody live. So until then, we're going to be
I hope to see some. Dude, when is Be Well coming to the West Coast? Is that under wraps?
It's going to be in May, June.
All right.
And I'll tell you when we're not on the video who it's with.
All right. and on that bombshell, I'm going to stop recording. Thanks, Mike, for joining us.
All right.